Good morning. Over the weekend, elections were held in Romania and Poland. NATO rigged the Romanian election. In Poland, NATO's candidate holds a very tiny lead. Neither population supports the continuing war in Ukraine. But a true result, announced today, would have killed the continuing destructive NATO meddling and sabotage of President Trump's campaign to end the Ukrainian war and its slaughter. While funded for years by the United States and manned in large part by us, NATO is really owned by the modern British financial empire. That's the ripoff that these globalists, endlessly praised by the media and our own politicians, still have a say in our world. As I speak, President Trump is continuing his peace campaign with phone calls to President Putin, the clown warrior Zelensky, and the Europeans. This week, our president of peace will also be trying to save the lives of starving Palestinians and the remaining Hamas hostages by halting the war in Gaza. Yesterday, Sunday, FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino told Maria Bartiromo that new and startling information about the Russiagate investigation of President Trump and about the events of January 6, 2021 is going to be released imminently. I'm going to tell you what I'll be looking for there. And late yesterday, we were informed that Joe Biden has very aggressive prostate cancer. And as a surely suffering human being, we pray for him. But the timing of this announcement has red flags all over it. Plenty of qualified medical people are asking big questions. So I'm going to give you my take on that. But these similarly disparate events have one thing in common. They are all taking place in the environment of NATO cognitive warfare. And if you don't expose that, you can't understand what has happened to us during the last 10 years. It's not domestic, it's foreign. I'm Barbara Boyd, and this is your Monday Brief. Now, lately, Volodymyr Zelensky has a British babysitter constantly with him. His name is Jonathan Powell, the national security chief for PM Keir Starmer. Powell's job is to keep the volatile and unstable Zelensky from ticking off Donald Trump. That's what the media says openly now. Zelensky, whose NATO cognitive warfare minders caused senators and congressmen here to call him another Churchill and throw billions of your tax dollars at him, is a former comic. His most famous feat before becoming Ukraine's president was pretending to play the piano with his penis. Many say his instability comes from addiction to cocaine. Just as he is an avatar, a media-fabricated personality, all the current leaders of France, Germany, and Britain cling to power only through prosecuting their opponents. Mass censorship and propaganda tools and election rigging. Vice President Vance took them to task for their war against their own populations at the Munich Security Forum back in February. These psychological warfare methods began to be applied to civilian populations after the Cold War ended, but particularly after Barack Obama's presidency here, when the crashed financial system was bailed out worldwide by us on the backs of working and middle-class U.S. citizens. The old propaganda trick, disguising fascist empire in the dress of democracy, was the main theme. Patriots and nationalists became the enemy. In recent days, France prosecuted the leader of the Nationalist Party, Marine Le Pen, and banned her from running in elections again. Starmer in Britain is polling at 23%. Nigel Farage's nationalists have surged ahead of his Labour Party nationwide. People are being arrested and imprisoned throughout Britain for thought crimes and media posts. Only 21% of German voters trust Friedrich Merz, and it took him 2 votes in Parliament to secure his chancellor post. Just last week, the United States had to pressure his intelligence agencies not to declare the opposition nationalist AfD party an enemy of the state. The AfD is now polling dead even with Merz's CDU. Romania will house the largest NATO base in Europe. Poland is the forward base for NATO supply for Ukraine. The nationalist anti-war Romanian Călin Georgescu won the first round in Romania back in November of 2024. But the High Court of Romania promptly came in and canceled that election, based on secret evidence they claim showed some kind of Russian interference. That's just like Hillary Clinton's attempted scam here in 2016. George Simeon, another nationalist, ran in a new election. He won 40% of the vote in the first round and won. But he was just defeated in the final election by an impossibly massive vote of the Romanian diaspora for his rival in the NATO-controlled enclave called Moldavia. Pavel Durov, the head of the very popular social media channel Telegram, says he was asked by French intelligence to censor all nationalist European candidates, including those in Romania. He says he refused. In Poland, the pro-NATO candidate for president leads by just 1.5% of the vote over the lead anti-EU nationalist candidate, Karol Nawrocki. Nawrocki just visited the White House. The vote for other anti-NATO, anti-EU candidates easily swamps the establishment candidate, and the NATO election riggers don't know if they can pull this one off. Hence the outright sweat and panic you see in their media coverage. Now, in 1993, George Soros wrote a tract called Toward a New World Order, The Future of NATO. Soros said that NATO had to have a new mission after the Cold War. NATO had to control the political process in its member states and hunt and conquer new members. Its enemy was the sovereign nation states and the diehard patriots in them. He called all nationalist patriots authoritarians and argued that all states should be open societies with open borders, open drug use, and fluid sexuality, all controlled by world government. Under Barack Obama, Soros's plan was brought into full execution. NATO's Global Engagement Center became active, manned by the British Army's 77th Brigade of propaganda warriors, and they pioneered all the censorship and offensive propaganda operations used against Donald Trump and the American people since 2015. They were fully applied in the 2014 Ukraine coup. All European elections became subject to the type of rigging we saw in 2020 here. Last week, DNI Tulsi Gabbard released the formally classified Biden administration intelligence targeting of all populist and nationalist figures in the U.S. because they said their ideas made them potential terrorists. These techniques, called cognitive warfare by NATO, are not meant to simply influence minds. They are designed to provoke desired targets into action. An example just might be creating such an environment of hate that individuals targeted by it believe it is their duty to become assassins. This has direct relevance to the assassination attempts against Donald Trump and Jim Comey's recent seashell threat. I'll be posting some of my prior writings on this subject on the website shortly. Back in February, J.D. Vance told the Europeans and NATO leaders that if they don't stop subverting elections, the U.S. will be out of this increasingly totalitarian alliance. Well, they just did it again. In my view, we should demand full disclosure of all of NATO's election subversion and cognitive warfare work right now. It will open up new doors for investigating the ongoing coup here, the doors leading to the truth, I guarantee it. That brings me to the appearance of FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino on Maria Bartiromo's show yesterday. They're feeling the pressure of not having said much about the coup of the last 10 years, which they're investigating. Social media has been overflowing with complaints from patriots rightfully demanding accountability. They promised in the next 2 weeks that we'll be hearing new details about the crimes of Russiagate and January 6th. Their brief echoes that of Ed Martin, Donald Trump's U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., who now leads the Anti-Weaponization Task Force at the Department of Justice. He told Tucker Carlson the strategy begins with rapid-fire declassification and exposure of the criminals, even if the statute of limitations, the court system in Washington, D.C., and Joe Biden's pardons thwart prosecutions. Patel and Bongino also revealed that Canada has become the main production and entry point for fentanyl. Not surprising, given the central banker Mark Carney's leadership there. I'll be looking for how much we have found out about the British, Ukrainian, and NATO parts in the coup against us. You cannot get to the heart of anything without that. Now, the announcement about Joe Biden's aggressive cancer is rightly under investigation because of all of the rest of the BS his doctors have told us previously. Recent books about him reveal that he has been non-comp since 2020. I think the 2020 installation of a mentally vacant president and an administration run by a committee of technicians was the last step in a plan to abolish the United States, particularly the leadership powers implicit in Article 2 of our Constitution. That's the presidency. That's what the fascists and authoritarians call authoritarianism. 2 books have hit the streets ahead of Joe Biden's diagnosis appearing. The first, by Chris Whipple, is called The Fight of His Life. The second, by Jed Kapper and Alex Thompson, is called Original Sin and is supposed to hit midweek this week. Public discussion of these books and listening to Special Counsel Robert Hur's interview of the senile Biden have led the people to ask the right questions. Who was running our government? Who knew the president wasn't there? And why was this done? Release of this diagnosis now is designed to stop people from asking those questions and to stop that investigation. In Whipple's book, Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, says that Biden was so out of it in preparing for his infamous June 2024 debate with Donald Trump that he thought he was president of NATO and not the United States. I say that wasn't senility. Biden was simply repeating his marching orders. Now, I want to thank you for the fact that we are growing and people appreciate us and are giving contributions, but we need to grow a lot faster. As you can tell from the depth of this brief, we have a lot to say and a lot to influence in terms of direction of these very, very critical investigations. We need your help to do that. Please support us by going to the Promethean Action website and becoming a subscriber. We can do this. We can actually win the country back, but it depends on educating the population about the real issues. Thanks very much for listening. I'm Barbara Boyd. Susan will be with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.